All right, welcome to part 3. I'm going to go over the musculoskeletal drugs and then the respiratory medications. I think that'll take us to about 10 minutes. So let's start with aspirin, which is Ecotrin. Then the Spanish would be Aspirina. It's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, an NSAID, and this is where those acronyms kind of fall apart. We see it's an anti-inflammatorio, no esteroideo. No, esteroideo. So it's like Rodeo Drive. So anti-inflammatoria, no esteroideo. And instead of NSAID, we see AINE. Number 2, it's aspirin, which is acetylsalicylic acid, or ASA. And again, we have a reversal of the acid and the acetylsalicylic. So instead of ASA, it becomes AAS. So AAS, I, ácido, acetil, salicílico. AAS, S, I, ácido, acetil, salicílico. And then part 3, it's enteric-coated aspirin. So aspirina con cubierta entérica. Aspirina con cubierta entérica. And it's enteric, so entérico means coated. Enteric means entérico, coated means cubierto, and recubrimiento. Motrin, I think I had mispronounced earlier. The I is pronounced as an E in Spanish, so Ibuprofen, Motrin, or Motrin. So that's a big difference between English and Spanish. Spanish is going to break at the vowel, Motrin, and English is going to break at the consonants, Motrin, so Motrin. Ibuprofeno is not right, it's Ibuprofeno, and Ibuprofeno. And again, this is another non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, an NSAID, which becomes anti-inflammatorio no esteroideo, or AINE, A-I-N-E. So anti-inflammatorio no esteroideo. The stem is profen, so la raíz es profeno. La raíz es profeno. So the stem is a little bit different. And then we look at the Motrin orange versus the Advil blue, just how they contrast, but they're the same generic medication. So Motrin naranja y Advil azul. Motrin naranja y Advil azul. Again, we have Ibuprofen, or Ibuprofeno, which is ibuprofen, and Advil, just a different brand name. And this again is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, an NSAID, anti-inflammatorio no esteroideo, AINE or AINE. And the stem is profen, so la raíz es profeno. And in English, I associated Advil with anvil, but you can see that that mnemonic again falls apart because asociar Advil con anvil, because yunque in Inglés, so yunque is an Advil in Spanish, and that kind of falls apart with that translation. Naproxen sodium, Aleve, Naproxeno. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, so anti-inflammatorio no esteroideo, AINE, AINE. Proxen, like profen, proxeno es similar a profeno. Proxeno es similar a profeno. And it alleviates your pain. Alivia el dolor. Alivia el dolor. Acetaminophen is Tylenol, and it just changes. You can see it's almost the same thing when you switch to Spanish, but acetaminophen is how I pronounce it. And it's a non-narcotic analgesic, so again, we're really saying analgesic that's not an opioid as the translation. So analgésico, yeah, that would be an H sound. So analgésico no opioide. Analgésico no opioide. And the chemical name, the N-acetylpara-aminophenol, the APAP, simply changes to APAF or APAF. So N-acetylpara-aminophenol, N-acetylpara-aminophenol. And then same thing again. We're just trying to get the Tylenol out. So if you were to have changed Tylenol to a more Spanish, something that pulls from the Spanish, it would actually be T-I-L-E-N-O-L from the acetyl, which becomes T-I-L versus T-Y-L in the English. So acetaminophen, aspirin, and caffeine, bring it all together. So we have pain medicine, anti-inflammatory with pain medicine, and then something for vasoconstriction. So acetaminophen, aspirina, and caffeína. So number one, the first medication, acetaminophen, is for pain. Acetaminophen es para el dolor. Aspirin is for pain and inflammation. Aspirina es para el dolor e inflamación. And then caffeine is for vasoconstriction. Cafeína es para la vasoconstricción. Cafeína es para la vasoconstricción. Y los tres ayuda con dolor de cabeza or headache. Okay, so now the respiratory medications. Diphenhydramine, which Benadryl, becomes diphenhydramina, and it's a first-generation antihistamine, so antihistamínico de primera generación. Antihistamínico de primera generación. And it's an H1 receptor antagonist, so antagonista de los receptores de la H1. Antagonista de los receptores de la H1. The stem is not ene, it's not, ene just means that it's actually just part of the amine, and an amine is just a nitrogenous group in organic chemistry. So the INA, the INA no es la raíz. La INA no es la raíz. My mnemonic falls down a little bit here. Bed becomes cama, so the B, E, and D from Benadryl no longer helps with the mnemonic, but you still see a benefit in there, and so that it's beneficial is really what beneficio is. So bed and benefit and dry all come from Benadryl, and that's a pretty clear mnemonic, but cama y beneficio seco kind of falls apart when you get to the Spanish. Cetirizine, Zyrtec, so cetirizina, and it's a second generation antihistamine, so antihistamínico de segunda generación, and a reminder that these second generation antihistamines are the ones that don't cause drowsiness. It's an H1 receptor antagonist, so antagonista H1, antagonista del receptor H1. And then the tier in cetirizine, the way you pronounce it in English, falls apart when you get to the Spanish, where it becomes lágrima en cetirizina. So lágrima en cetirizina, but that doesn't really translate as well. Loratadine is Claritin, loratadina. So loratadine is Claritin, loratadina, and it's a second generation antihistamine. Antihistamínico de segunda generación. Antihistamínico de segunda generación. It's an H1 receptor antagonist, antagonista H1. So H1 receptor antagonist, antagonista H1. The stem is atidine. So in the Spanish, you would change that E to an A. So la raíz es atadina. La raíz es atadina. And Claritin Clear, again, it just absolutely falls apart when it comes to changing it to a Spanish name. Maybe the word claro, but claro usually means like something is clear. Like you were telling me something and I understand what you want. So you've sent me to the pharmacy for Claritin and I brought you Claritin. Your instructions were clear. Your instructions were claro. But clear is despejar, quitar o mejora las síntomas de la alergia. So it's just basically saying what it's for. You're going to quit or get rid of or improve the symptoms of the allergy. Quitar, mejorar los síntomas de la alergia. Loratadine with pseudoephedrine, so Claritin D, becomes loratadina con pseudoephedrina. Loratadina con pseudoephedrina. It's a second generation antihistamine, antihistamínico de segunda generación. Antihistamínico de segunda generación. And again, it's another H1 receptor antagonist, but it's that second generation that doesn't cause drowsiness, and it's sympathomimetic. Sympathomimetic just mimics the sympathetic nervous system. So antagonista H1, simpático mimético. It's very similar to sympathomimetic. Stem is atadine. We talked about this. So la raíz es atadina, or drin and drina. So again, we're changing that E to an A. And Claritin Clear and fed up with nasal congestion absolutely does not translate well. So fed up with is like harto de la congestión nasal, and my mnemonic falls apart. Pseudoephedrine or Sudafed is pseudoephedrina. So I think what we're learning is that the generic names are a much better way to talk if you have a Spanish-speaking client than it is to talk in brand names. So pseudoephedrina and pseudoephedrine. Sympathomimetic, simpatico-mimetico. Sympathomimetic is simpatico-mimetico. And then decongestant is decongestionante. The stem is drin, changes to la raíz is drina, so the E to A. And then that fed up with congestion again just falls apart. Fed up with harto de la congestión nasal. Phenylephrine is neosynephrine, so phenylephrina. We see the PHs become Fs again in Spanish. So phenylephrine becomes phenylephrina. It's a decongestant, decongestionante. And it has the F in rin, so contiene rina. And neo means new. That sort of works, where neo becomes nuevo, and you see the N in E and O in nuevo. Okay. Oxymetazoline is Afrin or oxymetazolina. So oxymetazoline is Afrin, oxymetazolina. Decongestant, so decongestionante. Afrin and frin become afrin-ifrina. The rebound congestion is congestión por efecto rebote. So rebound. Triamcinolone is senonide. Nasocord allergy 24-hour becomes triamcinolona acetonido. And glucocorticoid, it's almost the same spelling, we just put an E at the end. So glucocorticoide. Lone is not really a stem. Lona no es realmente un raíz. And then nasal plus glucocorticoid makes nasal y glucocorticoide. And you still see the cort for corticosteroid in the middle. Last one for this group, guaifenesin with dextromethorphan is Robitussin DM. So you would pronounce it guaifenesina y dextromethorfano. So guaifenesina y dextromethorfano. It's a mucolítico. It's an antitussive, antitussivo. It would be antitussivo. Yeah. And then orphan stem would be orfano. And robs your cough. Te roba la tos. So it would have, the R works. It would just the rob works for the Robitussin, but the mnemonic when it comes to cough and changing it to tos doesn't really work. But the tos is a little more like tussive. So
All right, the next slides after this one, what I'll do is I'll start with the immune, but I'll cut it off here at 15 minutes.